Pick it up, Ralphie. How about it, Ralphie? You said you'd lock down a date for the procedure.
And hello to you too.
Ralphie, the date. When?
I'm sorry, Johnny. This Shiba neurosurgeons have changed their quote.
You told me 800K would cover it.
The fee for removing the implant is now 1.5 million. That is complete memory recovery. If you don't want it all back, I think they will come down.
Okay, ready to go. Let's go.
Hello and welcome. Welcome and hello. This is Wait, You Haven't Seen? It's a show where we talk about movies, and specifically, we talk about a movie at least one of us has never seen before. I'm your host, Travis, a.k.a. TV's Travis. This is episode number 363. And our movie this week from 1995 is Johnny Mnemonic, and here to talk with me about it, because she had not seen it, and we're fixing that, it's a swan named Emily. Emily, how are you?
I'm great. I'm so happy to be here again. Thanks for having me back.
I am happy to have you back. All right, so Johnny Mnemonic. We got talking. I said, hey, I need you to get you back on the show. We started throwing ideas back and forth. That one came up. So what's your history at all with Johnny Mnemonic? What did you know about it, and why hadn't you seen it?
I think my history, so when this came out, this was right in the time of I was going to the video store a lot, but I was not allowed to rent a lot of things at the video store. So I think I had seen the cover of it maybe, and I vaguely might have known that it was Keanu Reeves, and that's really it. Like I maybe knew the name, like I'd heard Johnny Mnemonic like as a thing, but there was no connection to the movie or anything.
Sure. So I did not see this in theaters. I didn't actually even see it the first couple of years that it was out and available, but same thing. Like I remember distinctly the marketing for this and seeing it all over the place and seeing the ads for it. And then it was an early one that had a website and like a web marketing behind it, which makes sense given the themes in the movie. It was one of those that I saw all the time at the video store, but I had read reviews that said it was terrible. And so even as a kid, I didn't want to really go and see that one. And then I saw there were other movies of that same era that I liked more. And so I'm like, well, I'm not going to watch that dumb movie. And I also had this thing in my head where I thought I had seen Speed and I liked it, but I didn't love Keanu in that.
Okay, interesting.
And so it was a couple of years before I really latched on to like, oh, Keanu Reeves is actually pretty cool. Like it took me until The Matrix to kind of latch on to that, because I think I had also seen Bram Stoker's Dracula, and
yeah,
bless him, he was trying.
Gosh darn it, he tries.
He really did.
Yeah, I think
so.
Funny enough, I think the first thing I ever saw him in was A Walk in the Clouds, and I want to say it was on like TBS or something. Like it was so random, and I was just like, "Oh, he's so charming," and all of this. So my path to him as an action star very much came later, which is a very funny way to get introduced to him.
Well, and it's funny because I had seen Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and Bogus Journey, so I loved those movies, and I knew him from that. But it was even after seeing Speed, it was hard for me to like think of him as an action star. And the trailers for this looked cool, but at the same time, like I had seen, I had already by this point seen Hackers, and the Net had been out, and there were other like the mid 90s for technology themed or cyberpunk movies was. I mean, we were just lousy with those. Like,
oh my gosh. And I didn't realize just how lousy we were, because I was as I'm watching this. So I'm like, oh my gosh, it's making me think of this and making me think of this. And so I'm going through and I'm looking at where all those movies that it reminds me of came out. I was like, oh, Hackers was 95, which is one of my all-time favorites. I don't claim that it's a good movie, but it's a movie that I freaking love and will watch often. Demolition Man, the reboot TV show, which was a favorite of mine. Fifth Element, like all of these, I'm like, oh, I was so bought in. And even though it had been produced much earlier, I remember around this time also watching Max Headroom with my dad.
Oh yeah.
And so it's that like the cyberpunk future was so much of my imagination in all of this. I was so like steeped in it, and I didn't even realize. So again, shocked that I missed this one because it it lives in that same pantheon of cyberpunk movies.
Well, and it's really funny because the year that this came out, 1995, we had Johnny Mnemonic, we had The Net with Sandra Bullock, Hackers, and Strange Days all came out the same year. And Strange Days, if you haven't seen that, is like if you took Johnny Mnemonic and actually made it good. Like, and I hate to
Spoilers
say
for
it that
later.
way. Right. I hate to say it that way, but so this is based on a short story by William Gibson.
Oh my gosh, the rabbit hole I went down about that. I was like, and so I'm going to fully call out a episode of this that I was listening to recently, and it was your In Time episode. And you were talking about these great sci-fi, like future punk short stories and how you can get away with so much of a cool world build, and then maybe, I can forgive not fully executing things perfectly because you sold me on the cool world, and I feel like this did that so well. So then finding out it was from a short story, I was like, oh, I want to read that now, because if this not my favorite movie came out of it, then I can't wait to read the world building that's in the book.
Well, what's fascinating about that is, so the screenplay is credited to William Gibson. William Gibson wrote the short story that it's based on. If that name doesn't immediately ring a bell, William Gibson wrote Neuromancer. He created cyberpunk effectively. Like, it's his worlds were what we think of when we think of cyberpunk now. And he had written the story of making Johnny Mnemonic is almost better than the movie itself. Gibson writes the short story. It gets published in 1981. And Robert Longo, who directed this film, this is the only movie he ever made. You can kind of tell. And I think I even read a quote somewhere from him saying, like, and I don't know how true this is, and this may be apocryphal, but basically the quote was like, suddenly I'm making a movie and I have no idea what I'm doing and I don't know where to place the cameras. Now, he's an artist. He, in fact, he did a lot of black and white photography art. Ooh. And some of his art is on the walls of the apartment in American Psycho. Some of those shots of like black and white with like people in weird poses with their arms out and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like that was Robert Longo artwork.
Cool connection.
Yeah. So like Longo was a big time artist, and he had wanted to make a movie out of this short story. So he and Gibson got together, started working on that. They wanted to make like a black and white art house picture, like $1.5 million artsy film based on the story. They couldn't get any financing for it. They tried, they couldn't. They couldn't get they figured out Sony ended up with the rights, and they said, well, we want to make this, but it was years later, and their whole thing was kind of riding on the coattails of a lot of the early 90s cyberpunk movies. Lawnmower Man was one. Ghost in the Machine. You had the anime influences of things like Ghost in the Shell and Akira and all of that.
Oh my gosh, yes. So much.
And so Sony is like, all right, well, we'll let you make the movie now. But they bumped the budget up to like 26 million and wanted it to be a big action piece. So it was not really the movie that Longo and Gibson wanted to make. And from what I understand, neither of them are happy with this movie because I think Longo had said it's something like 60% of what they made is in the final movie. And even that is a stretch. Oof. And he has since, one of his things, and I thought this was really cool, and I wish this had happened. He wanted to make the movie in black and white because he did a lot of black and white art. Yeah. That was his thing. And so I love the quote he said, which is like, a lot of black and white movies aren't black and white, they're gray. And he wanted to really boost the contrast and do that. But early on, that kind of got nixed, and they said, no, you're going to do it in color. Watching the movie, knowing that, it makes a lot of sense why it looks the way it does. Because it feels like it's lit for black and white. Which,
how terrible is this as I'm coming at it with a 2026 lens? I was so excited because I could see everything. There was great contrast, and just even thinking about some of the shots, they were set up like you would set up a photograph. And I think that's why they didn't necessarily translate as well to a movie because I was like, oh no, these were well executed still frames.
Yeah.
They didn't hold up as well once you had the camera moving. So that's fascinating.
Couple that with like directing action is so different than blocking out a scene and staging drama and staging where actors should be. Action requires so much. And if you don't have an eye for that, or you don't have a background in doing that, it can be really tricky. That's why like our current day action movies, so many of them are people that got their start in stunt work. Understanding that now. I just listened to a really fun interview with Scott Adkins talking about shooting martial arts films and how like you have to start with how do you shoot it? How do you frame and how do you film that action? You can have the greatest choreography in the world, but if you don't know how to frame it and how to film it, it doesn't matter. It's going to look like crap.
Right.
So I think that hurts this movie a lot because the action in it is kind of tepid at best. Like it's there. There's a lot happening, but nothing exciting.
Yeah.
And there again is why, like Strange Days, Catherine Bigelow directed that, and she had done Point Break, and she understood how to do action, I think, quite a bit better. Having said that, I agree with you. There's so much about the framing and the framework of this that I really love. I love this world. Cyberpunk worlds are super fun, no matter what. Like, they just are.
I'm ready to lean in fully. I was like, oh no, the number of movies I enjoy with that has told me, I'm like, oh, I think I might just like this aesthetic.
And quite honestly, for all of its faults and the cheese of this movie, I always have fun watching it because there's something about it's trying. They're really trying with this.
Yes. So much of it, I felt like, oh my gosh, this was your first crack at it, which then hearing what you said about him being a first time director, I was like, you had the bones of it. You had the idea. It definitely felt like it got away from you. And there'd be scenes where I was like, oh my gosh, you are setting up and teasing all of these cool concepts. And I think if you had somebody who had a little bit more knowledge with it, or just had a few more people maybe helping with the editing, like I think you could have really capitalized on it, even with some of the maybe less strong performances.
Yeah. Well, and also I think too, when you go from I want to make $1.5 million like art house, movie like that to a studio saying we're going to spend $25 million and we want a big action, blockbuster tentpole film. Well, now you've got producers and studio that are giving you notes and they're making you change things and add things. So there's a great series on YouTube called What's the Difference from Cinefix. And they take adaptations and they will tell you, a book to a movie. They don't say one is better than the other. They say what's different between them. What did they change? What did the book do versus what did the movie do? Maybe why they changed those things. And this is fascinating. They talk about Psycho. They talk about, Fifth Element, all these things. One of them was Johnny Mnemonic. And some of the changes that they made, bringing this to a book. Because again, it's a short story, right? It's not that long. In the story, Johnny is a courier. That stayed. But things like The Street Preacher made for this movie. The way J-Bone and the Low-Techs work kind of made for this movie. Jane as a character doesn't exist in the story the way that she is here. In the book, she is a what's her name? Maggie Millions, I think, or Molly Millions.
Yeah, I was reading
Molly
into that.
Millions.
Yeah.
They couldn't get, from what I read, they couldn't get rights for Molly Millions because she also exists in Neuromancer.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to basically take that character, rework it a little bit because Molly Millions has like eye augmentations for mirrored eyes and retractable claws are some of her augmentations, which is really cool. Instead, we have Jane is fine, and I think that the character isn't given a whole lot. This was Dina Meyer's first film. She had done, I think, some episodes of 90210 before this, and that was kind of it. So given that fact and kind of how little sort of story there is for her character, I think she was fine.
Yeah.
It's just
I realized
paper thin.
I couldn't figure out. I was like, man, I immediately, when she came on screen, I'm like, why am I bothered by her? Like, she's done nothing wrong as a character. And I was like, oh, it's because I remember her from Dragonheart. And she pissed me off in Dragonheart. And I was like, oh, I'm still holding on to that from 20 years ago when I saw it. But I was like, oh, no, but I agree. I think she did actually try to bring some personality to this character. And even though we're in the mid 90s, I still feel like we're very much suffering from hot lady sidekick in action movies. And so having any sort of feeling or depth that you could try to bring to it, I shout out, because like you said, she was not given much at all.
She was not. This was her. I love these two trivia pieces back to back. Dina Meyer's first feature film. Okay. And then this one was on IMDb. After finishing work on the film, Dina Meyer began working on her second feature film, Dragonheart. That's the extent of the trivia entry. Like, yes, that's how acting works. You go from one project to the next one.
Do we call that trivia, or do we just call
I kind of want to go to the Dragonheart page and see if the person said, after finishing this, she went on to work on Starship Troopers.
Oh my gosh. Honestly, if they leaned into that bit, I'd be so in, because that's hilarious.
Yeah, I'd be for it. What I do like, that's a pretty good, like, to start a career with 3 genre films.
Yeah.
You got this, Dragonheart, and Starship Troopers. It's not too bad. Also, watching this movie, I'm convinced that either Dina Meyer did not own a bra in the 90s or was just told not to bring one to set, because I don't know that I've ever seen her wear a bra in any movie from that era. I can't think of one, because she certainly wasn't in Dragonheart. Nobody was.
No. No.
But she brings an energy to the movie. I did like that. I just feel like, again, it's a character. This was a movie with too much going on.
Yes.
There were too many things stuffed into it. Like, because you have Dennis Akiyama plays Shinji, the Yakuza assassin that's after Johnny, right? Mm-hmm. But then he also has a boss that is played by Takeshi Kitano. Now, for anybody that's ever watched Most Extreme Elimination Challenge, you know who Takeshi Kitano is, because that show was based on Takeshi's Castle from Japan. He was a legend in Japan, is a legend in Japan. And in fact, there's a Japanese cut of this movie that is about 10 to 15 minutes longer, because they added more scenes of his character as a way to market it more in Japan.
Fascinating. Oh, I love that.
And I love him. Like, he has such limited use of English, and I think he learned all of his lines in this movie phonetically, his English lines. But he's, like, some people just have that. He's magnetic. Like, he's not in the movie much, and his character's kind of bland, but there's something about him that's really enjoyable.
And that's why those moments where you got a little bit of something from them, I was like, oh, this really, more than many other things, I think showcases that kind of star quality that people talk about. Because again, even these little moments where you'd watch him have conflict, that was very engaging. And that came through, like you said, even though he wasn't saying a ton, but any of the stuff related to his daughter or his kind of internal struggle, like,
yeah,
I was very impressed with that. And like you said, stack it up of all the other characters that we're trying to keep track of and follow their intricate storylines.
Yeah. No, I actually had a note to myself of, like, there's some streamlining that could have been done here. Like, the bones of Gibson's original story are really solid. The idea of information couriers and, like, things that are too sensitive to worry about moving them around in cyberspace, so you move them. It's an enhanced version of a sneaker net, right? They don't have thumb drives, but they have these
Shout out
drives.
To the movie Sneakers, which I just also adore. So
yes, that's one of the better hacking movies out there.
Not hackers, sadly.
No, although I will defend hackers to my dying day.
Oh, 1,000%. I love that, but yeah.
Yeah, but I love the idea of, like, this, they have a memory implant. And of course, 160 gigabytes of storage is so much storage.
It was so much.
And I'm like, I have an SD card around here somewhere that has that much storage on it, and it's the size of my pinky fingernail. Like, but it is hilarious because this movie is set in the far-flung future of 2021. Realizing today as I was watching it that was 5 years ago hurts. a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I
a
didn't.
lot.
I was like, oh, this is like a 21st century type thing. I was like, nope. This is. I was a whole ass adult at this point. Like, oh
This
no.
was 5 years ago now. Oh boy.
Ah.
But I do love, I love the idea of the data couriers and black market data moving.
Yes.
And they leaned into the cyberspace. I did like, for as bad as some of the CG has aged, I love the idea that the internet looked like a city.
Yes.
Because it did remind me of Hackers, which came out the same year. And that was one of the things that Ian Softly talked about with that movie, is like this idea of the digital world. And so they just took New York City and transposed it digitally to make what they did all theirs with practical effects.
Yeah.
As opposed to CG. But I love that idea. And so that was cool looking to me, to see like the digital buildings and the data moving around like cars and traffic and all of that kind of stuff. Brought me in right away.
And I can appreciate, like you said, like, and I will ride or die for Reboot because it meant so much to me. And it's not good 3D animation, but it was also 3D animation at the time wasn't easy or good to like make. So I cut that a lot of slack. But I was so happy to see them try so hard and actually like, oh no, like you have the gloves that allow you to interface with it, and it becomes this very tactile thing. And I think that's what also draws me into it even more. I was like, no, I love this idea that it's not just me sitting at a screen processing stuff. It is me actually traveling inside and interacting with this and having a physical digital connection to it that makes it feel so cool and different.
And it's one of those things, it's like Star Wars having sound in space, right? They knew making that movie, there's no sound in space, but it's not going to be interesting to watch that. So they made the decision, we're just going to have sound. And when you have movies based in computers, especially in these early days of computers, where there aren't a lot of graphical interfaces to them, you need something to draw your audience in. That's what Hackers was smart about. Because the thing with Hackers, and I defended this when I did it for the show years ago, is they talked to hackers in New York City, and they went to meetings, and they met with the people that were writing the zines and all of that kind of stuff at the time to get the culture right.
Mm-hmm.
And then they said, okay, now that we've got that, let's do something that looks visually interesting for a movie and not just a bunch of people hitting a keyboard in a room with no lights. So they went that route, and I appreciate that. And this did the same thing. It gave us, and I agree with you, the gloves and this tactile feeling to it. And regardless of if it looks accurate or not, it's something that's really cool to watch.
Yes.
It's interesting to see. And we saw it a few years after this with Minority Report.
Yep.
And then you had Tony Stark in the MCU doing the same thing. So it's not like nobody else has ever done that. And this movie, I think, helped to influence a lot of those things.
Yes.
The Wachowskis talked about this movie influenced The Matrix.
Which I
not just because
1000%
Keanu Reeves was in it, but they said like this movie. And I read something where somebody was talking about a review of this movie, and they said that their friends did not go see The Matrix in the theater because they thought it was just a ripoff of Johnny Mnemonic, and they didn't like that.
Oh.
It's like, oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
For you.
Oh my goodness. Well, and I think along those lines too, I want to shout out like the people who actually did the set designs and the costuming. Like I felt immersed in this world, and even though we look back, it's very funny to see the old tech, to see the projections of what they thought it was going to be like. I was like, but I don't care because top to bottom, I believe in this world. I believe in the way that you have to work around and interact in things, and that's tremendous. Even if I now have my future knowledge, I still am bought in.
And that's the thing, right? It's internally consistent with itself. Like, no, we don't have these giant banks of CRT monitors. I love the shot at the end of the bunch of TVs in like a cross shape.
Mm-hmm.
Was great. We don't have that, but this world does. And that's a thing that I tend to do with movies. Any movie that sets itself in the near future, number one, you're setting yourself up for failure when you do that. The reason Star Trek gets away with so much is because they're like, it's 300 years in the future. So nobody's going to be around watching it now to fact check that in 300 years. So near future setting is always tough. But they just go for it. They buy into it. And I love, too, the mixture of technology and this grimy underbelly, too. Like when he's in the cab and it's got the little video screen, but then the screen's got smudges on it and like dirt everywhere. And, you know, he wakes up in the beginning of the movie in this nice hotel. And then he spends the rest of the movie in these slummy areas. And it's great. I loved all of that. And it's a feeling and an aesthetic that, yes, it puts it in the mid-90s, right? It is.
Yeah.
It is Max Headroom. It is the Super Mario Brothers movie had it, right? And it's these sets with like just columns of fire for some reason just around.
Yep.
I don't know why, but
The
they're
burn
there.
barrels. I was convinced. I think because I live in the country and I had not been to a big city, I was convinced. I was like, there are just those drums and barrels everywhere. Wherever you go in the city, that's what's there because that's all that's in all of these shows and movies.
Right. And it's just somebody's idea of what a city would look like. And sometimes I will conflate this with Demolition Man and forget that Dennis Leary is in Demolition Man eating a rat burger and not this movie.
But he feels
But
like
then
he
as soon as I see, he could have been. Oh, yeah.
He could have absolutely been.
But the second I see Ice-T, I'm like, that's right. Ice-T is in this movie, which we got a couple of musicians turned actors. Ice-T had been acting for a few years already by the time this came out. In fact, this was the same year that he was in Tank Girl.
Oh, okay.
Tank Girl was also 1995. One review I read said, I'm convinced this character is just his character from Tank Girl before he became a kangaroo, which cracked me up because he's got the dreads and everything going on. But I love Ice-T. He hadn't found his acting stride yet.
No.
And so a lot of what he's doing in here feels like he showed up on the day, they gave him some technobabble to spout, and he did. And that was it.
Yep. He stood there and he said that line. And I think he skates by a little bit just with his inherent kind of cool chillness. No pun intended. But like, yeah, there were times I'm like, oh, okay. But I also half expected in some of the walkthrough, I was like, I was waiting him to just also drop the most unhinged string of definition about the terrible SVU case that had just happened. Like I was waiting for that moment. I'm like, what terrible thing are you going to tell me about that has happened to these people? I know. Instead, Henry Rollins got to do that as Spider. And this was only, I think, the second like film Henry Rollins had been in. And since this, I've seen him in a few other things. He's actually pretty good. And in here, it just felt like he was being Henry Rollins. Yes.
Yes. Which is fine. Like, go with what you know. He, again, though, he's one of those that can skate by on some charisma and like just the presence of being there. Plus those, like the glasses, that look was perfect.
Yes.
He feels like he was a former doctor turned flesh mechanic.
Yes.
Like, great term.
Which if you had pitched that to me, he blew me away. I was so surprised. I was not expecting to see him. And I was genuinely like, oh no, I really buy you as this character, as this thing. And I think there was a couple of moments I think he probably stood out a little bit extra just because in a scene with Johnny and Jane, I'm just like, oh, you are the most charismatic thing happening on the screen right now.
Yeah.
But so I don't know if you're actually that good or if it's just the contrast between the two.
It's hard to say. And, Keanu got a Golden Raspberry nomination for his role in this. And I don't know that that's necessarily fair to him because in a lot of ways, especially in this era, he was being looked at as the neutral mask. He was meant to be the everyman and very, very stilted and boring so that the audience could project themselves onto him. And I think it worked better in The Matrix than it did here.
Yes.
Because there's so much in The Matrix that's able to carry that. And here, Johnny needs to be a little more, because it needs to be Johnny's story as opposed to, like, The Matrix is giving us information and it's preaching a little bit and sort of, hey, here's this weird world and wouldn't this be odd? Whereas Johnny Mnemonic is like, here's a world and here's a story happening within that world. Yeah. And in that, you need a character. And I do think that Keanu is capable of that, especially now. But that wasn't, I think, what was being asked of him at this time. But I still like him. And that's the thing.
Very
Like, he has
much.
the look and the ability. His walk killed me, though.
Oh my
He has like
gosh.
a bounce to his walk that is just
It's weird. It's almost like comical. Like it felt like the Bureau of Silly Walk. I'm like, why are you doing that though? Is it just how your suit is cut? Like I couldn't figure out what was happening
I
in
know.
those moments.
It's like a loping walk, and it feels so weird
Yeah.
to watch. I don't know. It's just odd, but
No, I agree. I don't think. Again, is he great in it? No, but what I'm realizing, and it's funny, I actually just listened to a podcast that was talking about John Wick, and I think he is so much under the right director's hand, he absolutely comes to life. And
oh, absolutely.
and that, so I don't fault him for this, because also some of this stuff, I was like, the lines that he had to deliver, I was like, man, they kind of set you up for failure in that. And another thing that they talked about, and in just listening to kind of his backstory and reading up on him, what I realized, and I can't remember who said it, but they said he works so perfectly as the honorable warrior. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly right. Like his own, his human set of ideals and all of that and what he brings to the screen. And I was like, okay, so I checked out of the Johnny character when he hits one of his breaking points and he's lamenting the fact that he's in the slums and he doesn't get to be in a fancy hotel and everything. I was like, you don't give me a reason to connect to you. I don't feel like you are being driven to do this good thing that you're going to end up doing, but I don't buy it in you. And I think that's also why the dissonance happens for me. Because I was like, no, if you just left him as that honorable warrior, as that hero, I was like, no, that I would have bought 1,000% because he can sell me that.
They needed to have that arc happen earlier.
Yeah.
Have that arc start. So have him lamenting things in Act 1 or Act 2, not in the middle of Act 3, and then have him come around. Because by this point, we've already now learned that, because in this world, there's the nerve attenuation syndrome, I think is what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's learned that, this data that he's carrying is the cure for that. And, the whole idea that that the pharmaceutical company had the cure, but isn't giving it out because they make more money by treating it than they do curing it.
Yeah, boy, that was a funny tee ha-ha for our future thing. I was like, wow,
Yeah.
okay. All right.
I know. But like, because that gets revealed when it does, and then he has his little freak out moment, which in a vacuum, I love that moment. I may have captured some of that audio. I captured a good bit of audio of this movie, but you're right in that it once he learns about that, I feel like at that point his character should have been like, okay, well, we'll figure out how to do this. But he doesn't. And granted, had he gone through with it with Spider, he would have just been killed because Street Preacher showed up,
Right.
Carl. But, yeah. By the way, Dolph Lundgren, as Carl, the Street Preacher, dude is having a blast.
Oh my gosh.
He was not someone that Robert Longo wanted in the movie, but the studio... Apparently, Longo did not have a lot of say in who was cast in the movie. And one of those was Lundgren. Here's the sad thing. I think Dolph Lundgren's actually doing a pretty good job here. I do not think he is a bad actor.
No.
I think that he has been in a lot of bad movies. That's not his fault. And you can only work with what you've got. Like, people like to slag on him for his role as He-Man in the Masters of the Universe film, but the stuff they were having him say and the fact that he had only learned English like a year before, he wasn't fully fluent in English by that point still. To do what he did, I think was pretty good. By this point, he was pretty solid. This was the last film he was in a starring role that got a theatrical release for 15 years.
Holy cow.
He did a bunch of movies, but they were all direct-to-video until he finally got a role in The Expendables.
Oh my
The first
goodness.
that first Expendables movie was the first movie he was in that was in a theater for 15 years.
Wow.
Which is crazy.
That is nuts.
But he is another one who just has that charisma and can carry and do something as ridiculous as this preacher and make it work. Like, they basically just put him in a
loved it.
wig and a bunch of robes and said, go do your thing. And that is the character you can tell was like added in.
Yeah.
And because he would just sort of show up, do a thing, and then disappear for 20 minutes of the movie.
Yep.
And it's like, oh yeah, remember this guy? Here he is again.
He's got so much lore that everybody in the world knows about him, but he's not actually going to follow any consistent trajectory.
No. I guess there was a deleted scene of him preaching and talking about, I don't know if it was about the Black Sheikh or not, but he's supposedly like preaching naked in front of a bunch of women, and then gets called away to do like the assassination thing. So I don't know, but he is having a blast, and that knife he carries around that's a prop right there.
Oh
like,
my gosh.
I hope he made off with that thing because holy cow, that is awesome.
No, I so enjoyed him. And honestly, out of all of the, like we talked about, all the threads, all the different characters that don't get enough or they try to put too much of them in, I feel like he got the exact perfect amount of information to drop him in. You get somebody expositioning to somebody else being like, no, this is a guy that's gone full cybernetic and he's done all this, like he wants all these parts, and he is, street cybernetic Jesus, and that was it. And then you saw him and I was like, oh, this is cool. Like this gives me all of the anime, like you said, Ghost in the Shell vibes, where I'm like, I don't need anything more. You don't have to tell me anything more about him. You have given me the exact right amount of information, and I'm so in. And the fact that he is so menacing and so feared. No, done, sold. I bought in immediately, and I was thrilled anytime he showed up.
You can do that with a character, right? It's Lord Humongous from Road Warrior, where you don't have any backstory about him. He's just a cool look give him a few good lines, and that's all you need. That's this character. They just, because of everything else that's overstuffed in the movie, he doesn't get enough time to do anything, and then he gets a ridiculous death, and the movie ends. And I do want to talk about that climax, because we get to this point and the movie's getting ready to end, and we've got all of these things to tie up, and they're just like, I feel like the movie is just shrugging its shoulders like, well, let's just sort of do all of it then, I guess. Because Takahashi shows up and then is immediately killed by Shinji, who then has a fight with Johnny, and then Shinji gets killed by Johnny. And then Street Preacher shows up, and they have a fight. And oh, by the way, there's a dolphin involved in a tank. Here is one of my favorite things. So we have all this stuff that got added in, right? The dolphin is from the original story. That made it in.
Yep.
Although in the original story, apparently the dolphin is addicted to drugs. But that's a whole other thing.
I love that.
But
Like,
it's just,
no, that's the one thing we don't have time to put in. All of this other stuff, we got to make sure we fit in. But no. The dolphin, nope, can't upset PETA.
Nope,
like we
gotta have that. But like all of this is going on, and then the Street Preacher shows up. They have another fight before he gets defeated by the microwave dish and the dolphin doing something, and then now we've beaten all three of our big bads. Which is definitely too many. We needed one and a henchman. Instead, they're like three, because they're all like in it for themselves at this point now.
Yeah.
I never did figure out if Takahashi is supposed to work for Pharmacom or just be part of the Yakuza that like runs Newark.
I wasn't sure, because it felt like he was kind of undermining stuff, but then also kind of loyal. That one I couldn't tease out.
Because he's doing stuff, but then Shinji is like not working. He has to go to him, but he's not working for him, and he ends up killing him because the board, I don't know. And it's like the Street Preacher figured out, you have the cure. I don't know how he figured out that Johnny had the cure in the first place, but he's like, I'm taking that for myself now. So like everybody's out for themselves. And then after all that's done, Johnny's like, well, I got to get this stuff out of my head still, because by the way, he's got twice the amount of data that he can store, and it's causing his brain to synaptic seepage, I think is what the phrase they used a lot in this movie.
Yeah.
I did love, and I got clips, this one in particular. So synaptic seepage, right?
If the upload volume exceeds your storage capacity, synaptic seepage can kill you in 2 or 3 days. Plus, the data may be corrupted and coherent download will be impossible.
Now, I don't know much about brain implants for storing data, but I know that storage in general, you can't exceed the capacity of it. Like, it just isn't there.
Yep.
So that got me.
Yeah, they asked for
like right
you
away.
to have a big hand wave right out the jump. Also, and
Yeah.
I was still reeling from. He's like, no, he got the 2 times upgrade where he's got all of these gigabytes now, and I'm like,
Yep.
that's still so small.
Right?
That's nothing.
Oh. And then they want to put twice that amount in there somehow.
Yeah.
But yeah, so all of this is on a timer, right? Because Johnny's got to get this stuff out of his head or he's going to die. His brain's going to turn to mush. So he ends up having to like hack his own brain with the help of the possibly psychic dolphin. I don't know. All I could think of, and all I've ever, because I saw Sequest before I ever saw this movie, so it just, all I think of is Darwin from Sequest.
Yep. Very fair.
And then we get like this really big cyberspacey hacking his own brain CG fest going on, which it's a little rough at parts.
I love
it
too
was
because it's
it was very reboot though.
oh, it was so reboot, and he's like, I loved the needed exposition cut in. I think from
Mhm.
Ice-T, yeah. Where he's just like, oh, he's doubling himself, as you literally just saw like the thing copy itself.
Yep.
It's like, one, this contributes nothing to any of it, and you didn't need to tell me because I could see it. And oh my
Yeah.
gosh, it was
That's a studio note. That's a producer being like, you gotta say that or nobody's gonna understand what's going on.
it's like in this made up cyberspace world where they're geometric shapes fighting. Okay, yeah, make sure you tell them that.
It's the difference between a movie that takes its audience seriously and trusts them to understand what's going on and a movie that somebody, not a filmmaker, said, we need to dumb this down. Because I understand, and that's sort of film school 101 is like explain everything and pretend like your audience doesn't know anything. I get that. That's why like an air conditioning vent turns on, it'll have tassels on it. So you see those floating because they can't, you have to assume that people won't realize there's air coming out of that.
Right.
Whatever. But don't patronize your audience. And that was patronizing the audience. Like, we just saw him double. Now you're going to tell me that he doubled?
Yeah, that one I was on board with. And I think too, trying to explain this more only hurts it. This benefits from the fact, like, no, don't assume the audience is coming into this as one of the higher echelon pharma company people. Assume these are some of the no tech people. And so some of this higher level stuff that they've actively distanced themselves from, great. It can be mysterious. You don't have to give me all of the details about it. I'm happy that this is just the weird woohoo magic part, and that's fine. I don't need more.
Absolutely. I do love little things like when he comes from Beijing to Newark. By the way, this is set in the bustling metropolis of Newark, New Jersey. For my New Jersey friends, yes, I will make fun of New Jersey. I'm sorry, but not sorry. But he goes in. I did like the digital passport.
Yes.
That was cool. And then the scan, right? They do the full body scan, and you get
Scanning dyslexia prosthesis implant. Government approved.
all right. So you're government approved. Cool. You get to come into the country, and very courteous robot, by the way.
Warning, detected synaptic seepage. Neural failure within 24 hours. Seek medical attention immediately.
Thank you.
Welcome to Newark.
I wish I'd ever received that nice of a greeting in Newark, ever at
Right?
any point.
Right. Or just coming back into the country from travel would be great too. And one of my notes that I had was, and this is that like lived in world thing, is right after that scene, we see him take his digital passport and chuck it in a bin, and it's a little mini incinerator. And like that alone is one of those things, they don't need that, but just having that little bit of a glow. So you just know like all the trash just is immediately incinerated in this world. I like that.
Yep.
That's a cool little detail.
Yeah. And it's exactly what you said. It's lived in. And I liked, so contrary to the, oh, he's doubling himself, the way that couriers get away and can internationally travel is because it's seen as a medical implant.
Yep.
That was such an easy, you just explained so much to me of how the courier business works in this world.
Mhm.
Like that, and that was so simply done. And that, so I loved that part because I was like, oh no, you gave me so much information in this little scene without feeling like I was talked down to.
Yes, exactly. And you of course you're going to have exposition dumps, right? You're going to have moments where they got to like give us some kind of backstory. So when Jane and Johnny get away from the guys and they're walking along in like the subway tunnel or whatever, and she starts talking to him about like what he does, and I loved
Implant. Wet wired. I had to dump a chunk of long-term memory.
You had to dump a chunk of what?
dump a chunk is not something you should say pretty much ever. But they did.
And even in that, like, with a little bit of difference in the script, I think you could have had that moment where he is, because part of his story is he's trying to get out of this, he's trying to reclaim his past and all of these things. Like, you could have had a really nice heart moment for him there as his motivation and his frustration. Like, you could have built me to that point and had it have a little bit more weight. But yeah, again, we get dump a chunk. You're like, okay, well, maybe that didn't land with me quite as well as I would have liked.
No, I feel like that read better off the page than when it was like somebody needed to say that out loud and be like, maybe we should change that. I don't know.
Okay.
But,
and I'll say along those lines, the one that killed me, and they explain it and I understand it, but gosh darn it, Dr. Allcombe made me insane. I was like, no, I reject this one. You can give me all the crazy other stuff, but no, stop it.
Yeah. That one was pretty bad. There's other little things like, again, this isn't Keanu's fault when he's given lines like this to deliver.
Question.
Yes.
You don't look like the kind of people I usually work for.
Johnny, do you know what a question is? Because you followed up question with not a question. That bothered me a lot.
And even just
more
that
than
little
it probably
bit,
should
like,
have.
up at the end, like,
Yeah.
people I work for, like,
Yeah, then it's a question. But what you said was question and then a statement. So, there's that. I love, too, little things like,
I want to get online. I need a computer.
look, yes, okay, I've been there. I know what it's like, but it's so good. And the whole time in that opening scene where he goes to the first job in Beijing and he's dealing with those guys and, the whole, like, these guys just are trying to get this information out and we've got to explain to our audience what's going on. And so at first I was kind of bucking against that, like, no, he would know all of this stuff. You're not going to be telling him about it. But then I realized, you know what, though? Narratively, this can work because these guys are nervous.
Yes.
And this is their nervous way of, like, they start reciting what's going on as a way to keep themselves sane.
Yeah.
So I got that. And,
you believe
and actually
them
at that point,
as scientists, as researchers. They're not comfortable in a high stakes environment. They're surrounded, like, the people they're surrounded by. I'm like, you hired these guns. You don't know them. You are so amped on this and what you have. You don't know how to act. You're not cool. You don't know how to act in this situation.
No, not
so
at all.
I agree. Initially I was like, oh, but I very much came around on the two of them. So it's like, no, this tracks. This makes so much sense for how these scientists would behave.
The movie does have that retro futuristic thing going on. So there's stuff that they just didn't think about how it would change in the future. And so you get stuff like this.
You get a hard copy. You fax one copy to your connection on the other side. When I get there, we feed in the code and download. Understand?
They get it. And there are still fax machines out there, but they're not going to be, they're not that prevalent. There's very few of them left, and it's mostly legal offices at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And even they're moving away from them.
Yeah.
But that got me when he said, yeah, you fax a copy. I was like, oh. Oh, yes, that's right. This came out in 1995.
Yeah. And I think as we've been talking about this, there's something where, and not to add to the plate that is already over the buffet plate that is this movie, but I feel like, you could have leaned Keanu into a little bit more of kind of like the hitman, or the fact that with this implant, it deadens some of his more human emotions. Like if he is a little bit more robotic because of his job, because of what he's gone through, I would buy that. I'd lean into that part of it where I was like, oh, so then not only is he on a quest to revive his humanity, remember his past, and kind of reconnect to that, like that you could have actually pushed him a little bit farther. So when he has these very kind of stilted line deliveries, he could be a little bit more cybertronic and it would have fit.
Yeah. No, you're right. But they just didn't give him that. So instead we get stuff like he walks into the room for the first time and he holds up his briefcase and they all point guns at him and you get
Double cheese anchovies?
yes, I carry my pizzas around in a briefcase.
That one caught me so off guard because at first I was like, why is he holding his briefcase? And then he said it. I was like, okay, well, you tried to cut the tension, I guess.
Yep. And you know what? I'm going to give him a pass on it because Keanu is cool enough to get away with saying that. Also, nobody's ordering double cheese anchovy.
No. Gosh, no.
I don't mind anchovies, but not double cheese anchovy. And not only anchovies.
Oh, that's too much salt. That's too much sodium in one.
It really is. Also, movies with technobabble and name-dropping gear. So there's the scene where they get to the back of a computer store. Mm-hmm. And it's super fun when he puts on all the gear and he's doing like the motions and everything. But he has to have his gear up scene, and so you get...
I need a Sinologic 16, Sogo 7 data gloves, a GPL stealth module, one Birdine intelligent translator, and Thompson iPhones.
None of that is actual stuff. Right down to the Thompson iPhones, which the iPhones were a thing that some guy had created. Their goggles.
Oh my
They were the goggles that he was wearing. And it was sold to a company called Thompson. So that was kind of a nice little Easter egg.
Okay.
But like none of that's real stuff. It just killed me. I absolutely loved it.
You cut to Jane and she's grabbing all this stuff and I was like, so she knows all this stuff?
Yeah.
She is like aware of all the It's just too funny.
She worked at a Radio Shack. That's what it is, right? Before she got tweaked out and started getting implants, she worked at a Radio Shack. The last one from Keanu I want to play. It is I want this to be in fact it's going on my soundboard.
I want room service!
It's a very, very good rant.
It is.
The rant is really it's Nicolas Cage level reciting the entire alphabet in Vampire's Kiss rant. And I loved it so much. I just wish it had happened earlier in the movie.
Exactly. You hit it on the head. If that happens early on when things first go sideways for him, perfect. Then it fits great. His rage is totally justified. His naming of the very specific sandwich and the cold Mexican beer, like, yes, I'm in it because you're so pissed that you are hyper fixating on this thing that you want. Like, yes, just not in the moment that you gave it to me.
Yeah, you just timed it wrong. So we haven't talked about him at all, but Johnny's contact, Ralphie, played by the one and only Udo Kier. I loved Udo Kier. I still do.
Voice.
We lost him, unfortunately, recently, but Udo was amazing in everything he was ever in. His voice. Like, you listen to him say something like,
Hello, Johnny.
Oh no, sorry, that was Shinji. This was the one.
How you feeling, Johnny?
He has some way of making everything sound so sexy.
Yes. Oh,
so
very,
sensual.
very sexy.
Like you get a little tingle when you're listening to him talk. It's and some of it is the accent, right? He's got that German accent going on in there, but he's just everything is very breathy that he says.
And I don't know, they're a term usually used for wine, but I also use it in audio stuff too. But like the mouthfeel, like I don't know, it just feels like he is literally like chewing through the words, and it feels hearty. It feels full of
That is
depth.
a great way to put it. Chewing through the words, because it like this exchange.
Don't worry. They said they can extract.
Extract!
The way he says that, like, don't worry. He's just chewing his way through that line.
Yeah.
Which is what makes when he freaks out, because then his bodyguard comes in and knocks Johnny off of him later on and knocks him unconscious, and it's
Not on the head!
so good.
Mm-hmm.
And Shinji throughout the movie has his little thumb like garrote wire, laser garrote whip thing. And I like the narrative idea of when Takahashi tells him like, oh, you turned your shame into an asset. Because with Yakuza, you mess up, they take digits, right? They cut off fingers. So he had his thumb cut off and he got that thing on there. That was great. But when he used it, when Jane shows up and her and Johnny and they get away and they close, the way that thing worked was very inconsistent because that door stopped him for some reason. But later on, we see him like slice a pipe in half with no problems at all.
Yep.
But you've got Ralphie's like trying to get through the door and Shinji just whips the whip at the door right next to him. And I just loved the reaction.
You could have fucking killed me!
He just snaps on him.
Yeah.
And it's great because we've seen of Ralphie so far, he's been so calm most of the time.
Yes.
And then turned right around and did get killed. Pretty brutally, actually. So, but Udo Kier. Udo Kier is just great. He wasn't in the movie long enough.
No. And in a way, I almost wanted him to be the big bad. I wanted him to be the puppet master of all of the, like, no, I'm leading Johnny on so he'll do one more job so he continues to be indebted. And just because I wanted more of him. I wanted more of his delivery. I wanted more of his scheming. I just wanted more. I wanted to listen to him more.
I think a way that you do this and you can streamline this story a little bit is Shinji and Takahashi don't need to be two different characters, for one. The street preacher, I think, being brought in as like, hey, we need somebody who can go and find him. That makes sense. And then, but you do some combination of Takahashi, Shinji, and Ralphie into one, and you've got a much more compelling story because now you have one enemy to focus on and then a henchman, right? It's the James Bond formula.
Yes.
James Bond got it right where you had a Bond villain, you had a henchman, and then a bunch of faceless, nameless mooks.
Yep, you had the NPCs, but you have that memorable henchman. So they're still, they're named. They've got a visual to them, but they're still a henchman.
Yes.
And to that point, you had him using kind of the puppet thing to make the one thing. So you could have had Ralphie be multiple people in the world under his puppet master thing and just use that technology. But you solved it for me.
Yeah, your world had all of the pieces you need for it. And did this movie give us VTubers? I mean, I'm not sure if it did or didn't, but it definitely that's basically what he was doing there.
Oh, that, and because even with he was just making
the hand motions, yeah.
Oh, that's too good.
But yeah, that's what I would do is I would combine those three characters and keep the street preacher, but now he gets to be the one because Shinji and the street preacher are redundant.
Yes.
Because they're both doing the same job. And then Takahashi and Ralphie become redundant in a way. And it's just too much. Yeah. So just streamline that a little bit. You've got Johnny and Jane. You've got one guy after them. You even really could combine J-Bone and Spider. You don't need both of them. Yeah. Because, one is leading the resistance and the other one is part of the resistance, but not. I'm not really sure what Spider was all about, but because he's helping people, but he's also doing augmentations to people.
Right.
So again, but yeah, I would combine those two characters into one. And it just streamlines everything. You can have more people in the movie, but combine those characters so that's who you're following.
Right. And then their motivations make more sense. And you can still have the leader of the resistance combine in a character, and you can still have your guy at the desk. They can have their attendant who runs all of so you've got him as the face of the revolution and him being a former doctor. And that's the reason that he's been elevated to this status, because the people look to him. And then you've got his tech guy. And that, and also you don't have to dedicate time to the two random guys who talk to each other a bunch.
Which they were great. They're like the minstrels, right? They're hilarious. They're your C-3PO and R2-D2.
Yep.
But also like we didn't need to spend that much time with them either.
No, we didn't. Oh.
And Henry Rollins is amazing. I love Henry Rollins so much because he's just got that thing, and nobody can deliver a line like this but Henry Rollins.
Get on the table.
What?
Don't be a bigger asshole than you have to. Just get on the table.
Like he's perfect for that.
Yep.
He's perfect for that type of character. He is Kevin Smith's character in like Daredevil, I think it is, where he works in the morgue and he's like, he's the one kind of freaking out. He's that guy that a lot of these movies will have that is going to have that rant. Dennis Leary in Demolition Man is that same character. So you get the moment where, you have something like...
But we still have all this shit because we can't live without it.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's literally killing everyone, and he knows it, but he also has to use it. And it's just like, I like that character. So...
And that, again, it's those... I think this is also why, and I don't know if we've officially said it out loud, I don't think this is a good movie, but I think the idea and the bones of it were there. And I would so love, like, to see this in an anime where you could kind of have the exaggerated everything would have fully sold it for me. But you believe him, and he says so much to you, the audience, in that scene. Whereas, like, no, we can't live without it, because it's the frustration of this fact. It is a fact of life, and he hates it so much, but he's also keenly aware that there is no clear path to being without it. And I think that was a fun separation between him specifically and the low techs, whereas like, no, I still have to exist in this world because so many other people do. And if we don't, we're abandoning all of them, and you can't just fully run away from society. But I'm so mad about that fact. Yeah.
Oh, I would love an anime version of this story.
Oh my gosh, so much.
Because the bones are there. There's so much good. And plus, I'm just trying to picture the anime version of the Street Preacher, of Carl.
Mm-hmm.
Because you would make him, like, Dolph Lundgren is already a giant human being, and you would make him even bigger, right? He would look like Sagat from Street Fighter 2.
Yes.
He'd be like 7'3".
Yeah.
But I loved the Street Preacher. I got a couple more clips of his because they're too good. First of all, when Takahashi calls him, and he's got his video phone inside of a giant, like what looks like a big Bible, was amazing. But he calls, and you get
Church of the Retransfiguration. Thank you for calling.
I like the Church of the Retransfiguration. That's good. That's a good one.
You need someone brought to Jesus or to you?
That's real good.
That's
really understanding
good.
The assignment.
Yeah. And it's in both ways. I can see how he absolutely was forced into this movie, but I said it earlier, I so love it. I so buy it. And they did at least manage to make him feel consistent with the world.
Yes.
In this, so that, the commodification of religion and the an evil spin out to televangelism, an even more evil spin out to televangelism. But that kind of, again, he's clearly got all of this money for these upgrades and everything. And yet is, the contrast then with being a Jesus figure. Yeah.
Oh, it's so great. And two more of his. One, this is going also on my songboard because it's so great.
Hold, sinners!
In the road, and they run him over, and he just shrugs it off.
Yep.
And that's when you realize, because they've made mention of him being like cybernetic, but you don't ever see it. So when he gets hit by the truck, and he just gets up and like
2 little drops of blood on his forehead.
It was great. But the way he says "halt sinners" is so good.
So good.
And then his fight at the end with Johnny.
He's made you the vessel of his mercy as I am the vessel of his wrath.
That's real good.
He's really good
really-
with what he's doing. I believe him in this.
Mhm.
He fully sells to me religious fanaticism.
Oh, yeah.
Assassin.
Absolutely. And one last one. I have to play this. This was too good. This is. I have a couple of weird noises I want to play first. Sorry. Because I love capturing just weird sounds and noises and laughs. So we had like the guy that Johnny is going to his meeting, or the early meeting, and there's the guy in the big hat with like a shotgun, and he sort of like, "Hey, it's down here," and is it clear? Yeah, and then he gets down there and he's like, "You lied to me." That guy is the worst criminal hitman ever. Because no less than 3 times he has somebody at gunpoint and just gets taken out. But he has a wonderful.
He's
that
somebody's
wonderful
cousin.
laugh.
He is nepotism into the
He
mafia.
is, absolutely. It's just like, I'm sorry, it's that moment from Guardians 3, and Nathan Fillion being like, I got one of those too. Drives me crazy. That's this guy. But he had a great laugh. And then he gets the knife in the chest.
Yep.
He's got them at gunpoint, but he's still got a knife thrown into his chest before, because he was too busy laughing.
Yeah.
That's a good laugh.
That was a great laugh.
Okay. So the movie may or may not have given us VTubers. It may or may not have also given us symphonic metal.
Ooh.
Because in Ralphie's club, the music that's playing in the background, I captured that. And
yes.
This is amazing. There may have been symphonic metal before this movie. I don't know. I'd have to research it or something, but that's amazing right there. Like, that is phenomenal. I also loved the bartender in Ralphie's Club.
Yes.
Hookie was the character's name, played by Don Franks. He just has a couple of moments, right? He hands Jane a drink early on, and you just see him there, but then when Carl shows up and smashes his hand, which was cool because it was a robotic looking hand, but it was all blood inside of it.
Oh, that was brutal.
It was very brutal. But he had some moments like
Oh man, why'd you have to do that?
like the dude is going for it. There was this little noise he made.
No.
And I think this was him too. No, that was one of Ralphie's bodyguards. But it just kept going.
Yep.
It was like, and it was just, a slice to the hand. So like, that's the worst bodyguard ever because it can't take any pain.
Yeah, I feel like there were so many times for everyone, top to bottom, from the unnamed bodyguards to Keanu, where they got like one take, and maybe we could have done 2 or 3, and we could have maybe found a groove with that. But it's like, nope, cut it. We have time to do 1. I was like, okay. They just knowing that, they're like, I have to give this my all. I get 1 death scene, and I have to show that I can die cinematically.
To that end, number 1, this sound effect of the arrows. And I love the low-techs using crossbows.
Yes.
That was great. But the sound effect of the arrows, they used this twice within like 3 seconds. It's great arrow sounds. But my favorite part of that whole sequence is the guy that got one of those 2 idiot minstrels who gets killed and he falls. We'd already seen their little mechanism of dropping bugs. Mm-hmm. Volkswagens that would explode.
Hey, that was a funny little. I was like, oh, okay, that was all right.
It's clever.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I'll give you that one.
I give you that one. That one.
And
okay.
I like that they have them loaded up, and as soon as they drop, they explode into like a fireball.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very cool looking. But he falls onto the controls and drops one, and it lands on one of the Yakuza soldiers. Just random guy, and you get another one of the Yakuza soldiers yelling Maroni.
Okay, she had a whole backstory
Yes,
Like,
she did.
She came to set. She was the PC in your D&D game who came with an entire binder of her backstory. Like, this was her comrade in arms. They'd been through training together. Like, there was potential, will they, won't they, potential. They'd never confessed to each other. Like, her level of outrage of her person getting killed who you've never met them. You don't know either of them.
We had never seen either character until this scene, and the only thing we saw of Maroney was him look up at the falling car that landed on him. She yells his name, so he gets a name, and then proceeds to fire 3 rocket-propelled grenades into heaven, right? Into the low-tech. I'm just like, I want a whole movie about her, and I want a whole movie about Hookie the bartender.
Yes.
And like his adventures. Those two characters they came, you're right. That is the perfect way to put it. They showed up with the binder of their whole backstory.
Which I love.
And
I love it. Go for it.
I absolutely
Why not?
do. No, it's perfect.
Oh.
No notes whatsoever. Just go with it. And finally, and this again is not Dina Meyer's fault. It's not Keanu's fault. They're given this to work with. This is them walking along. She's trying to have a conversation with him. And to your point, I like the idea that maybe something to do with like the implant is taking some of his humanity and that's making him a little stilted. But we don't get told that. Instead, we just get this.
Well, you got parents and stuff?
You got parents and stuff?
That's rough. That's real rough. I felt like that needed another take or two, maybe a table read.
Yeah.
Something. Let's punch that up a little bit. Instead, no, we got that. And it was like, cool, cut, print, check the gate. Let's move on.
Yeah, I was like, okay. Yeah. And again, to her credit, I think she kind of like she nails that first line of an entry thing and they just their energies did not match in that. And so much then to that point of like, oh, that's right. They're definitely going to kiss at one point, even though it is super unearned and there is no chemistry happening. But hey, cool. She gets to say that she kissed Keanu one time. Like, that's got to be a nice thing.
It's another one of those things I forget about in this movie because it has no bearing whatsoever. And it is literally just shows up one scene where she's sitting next to him as he's in a chair. And then they like longingly look at each other. And I always forget. And I'm like, oh, that's right. We have to tick the box of romance, third act romance when they've had no chemistry in that way throughout the movie. Like the closest we get is he doesn't leave her to die of the black shakes in Grand Central Station.
Right.
And takes her to Spider, which again, to your point earlier, is him going down the honorable warrior path only to then try to reverse course later and strip all the gears doing so.
Yeah.
So it's like it's just structure. It's William Gibson, I think, wrote a good short story, and I think he probably wrote a pretty good script that then just got hacked to pieces by the studio. And I feel bad for him and I feel bad for Robert Longo because I think they had something they really wanted to make, and I would love to slip into the alternate universe where they got to make their $1.5 million art house black and white movie based on this.
Yes.
I think even with this cast, it could be really interesting.
Honestly, yes, because I think you could still really pull something interesting out of it. And I want to say you then end up with something more along the lines of like Sin City, where it is this like high art's the wrong thing, but high visual, like the aesthetics are the thing. And it's because that's what cyberpunk is. Like it's the crazy technology that you can't understand fully because it's mostly made up. And it's these hard black and whites and this noir feel with, the streaks of neon CMYK. Like it was there. You could have had that part of it. And I agree. I think they could have made that.
And I do think if you want a fun romp, this can be that. There's a reason it became kind of a cult classic, and it did not do well. It was made for roughly $26 million. Its U.S. grosses were less than that. I think they were somewhere around 18 or 19 million. And it made a little bit overseas, but I think its total was like 50. So it wasn't a big hit. They put a lot of marketing behind it. So you have to figure that the marketing budget is, I would have to estimate at least half the production budget, if not the full production budget. Like big budget movies, a lot of money goes into the marketing for it. So that hurt it. But it did pretty well on home video, and it got a cult following. A lot of it is because the cast. I mean, the cast is so great, and the bones are there.
Yeah.
And I think if you like Cyberpunk, this is worth watching. If you want a good Cyberpunk movie, Strange Days, that came out the same year, is a better version of this.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the exact same movie. It goes in a few different directions, but it's a better version of what this movie was trying to be. And it's funny to have both of those in the same year because it's very much the Armageddon Deep Impact
the
of
Ants
1995.
Bugs Life. Yep. It's the, like, why was this the year that this was the thing we had to make?
And it's also that thing of like Johnny Mnemonic is very much Armageddon, where it is big budget, wants to be action movie, tentpole summer thing. Strange Days has action in it, but it's more of a think piece, which is what Deep Impact was, more of a thought-provoking thing. And then you had like the differences between Ants and A Bug's Life is kind of the same thing. Like they're not telling the same story, they're just playing in the same sandbox.
Yep.
And it's funny how that happens so much. I mean, look at The Net and Hackers coming out in 1995. And they're both kind of that same realm, but very different iterations of it, very different takes on that type of thing.
Yeah, I
So-
feel like while Hackers tries to have the, like, there are big consequences to these things that we're doing, it's so much more about the community and the vibes and the aesthetics, where I feel like the other one is very much like, oh no, this is actually dangerous, and it is dangerous
Yes.
to the people who are interacting in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. One is telling a story. One is a story going on with a bunch of characters that you care about, which is why for me, Hackers works better, because I care about all of those characters within that they gave us.
Yeah. 100%.
And what's happening to them. And, there happens to be, oil tankers flipping over and that kind of stuff, like big stakes, but we never see those stakes.
Yep.
Because we're focused on those characters.
And baby Jesse Bradford. And also, oh my gosh, I absolutely lost my mind to a friend who, bless his heart for listening to me just babble about this stuff, but one of the actors who is a part of the duo of Razor and Blade showed up in another movie, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's a guy from this. And he's like, what? And I was like, he's in the Hackers movie for maybe 5 minutes total at most, but I think it's in like Margin Call or something. Like he's a part, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's him. He's like, why did you know that? I'm like, I watched Hackers a lot. I need you to know how many times I've watched that movie.
Yep. Oh, that movie.
So good. I will say, though, I'm very excited. I've never seen Stranger Days, so I'm very excited to watch that. But I will say I don't think it's going to have the moment of Dolph screaming Jesus time, which...
No. No. And again, Strange Days is a very different movie. It's just that same aesthetic, and it's the same year. But no, you don't have Dolph yelling that. You don't have Dolph yelling,
Hold, sinners!
like you just don't. You don't have that.
Oh gosh.
We don't, and we don't have.
I want room service!
It's so great.
But we do have that in Johnny Mnemonic, and I'm really glad that you saw this, because I do feel like this is the quintessential Saturday afternoon matinee movie. This is the hang out with your friends and have some drinks and some snacks and just Friday night movie night. Let's throw on a movie it's dumb, and you don't mind if like you're having conversations during it, because
yes,
it's not, you put it perfectly, and I agree with this. It's not a quote good movie, but it is enjoyable, and despite its flaws, I do come back to it because of that, because it's trying.
Yes.
It wants to be a good movie. It just isn't getting executed well, but it doesn't, for the most part, doesn't have like boring. It's not boring.
No. And sometimes I feel like it's a little bit too much, like, then this happens, and then this happens, but I was still happy to be on the ride. And it feels so much like the scene in Hackers. I'm just going to keep coming back to it because I love it so much, but them all hanging out and taking turns hacking. Like, this would be such a fun movie to have on with your friends while you're creating something, or like the old LAN parties, like that type of vibe where I'm just like, yeah, this is what I want. It is such a different future for the internet than what we have actually gotten. And I think even though it's, it's dystopian and it's not a happy place, like I still have this weird nostalgia for that vision of the internet and that vision of the technologic future.
Yes. Agreed. And I'm so glad that you saw this and you can take it off the list and then go watch Hackers as a palate cleanse.
Yes.
Which I may or may not do later. I don't know yet. What do you have going on that you want to let people know about?
Oh gosh. So the very top thing that I want to throw out is, and hopefully you've seen it in our advertising, but I'm a part of the Airtime for Nonsense Media Network. So we have socials of that. We have a website that is literally the best place to find out where myself and all of the amazing people that I know that are making things are doing stuff. And we have a great thing where we can shout out our friends, which is awesome because we get to shout out you in this show that I love. So that's the biggest place to find me. You can also find me all across the internet at a swan named Emily. Speaking of D&D, I have hopefully releasing next month a new D&D project that we've been working on called Young Vale, which if you search for that, you can see a little teaser of that. So I'm very, very excited about that one. And then there's a few other kind of D&D things that are coming out soon. And hopefully by the time that we get to Dragon Con and we're all hanging out again together, I'll have more fun stuff that is officially released. But
excellent. Yeah. Airtime for Nonsense. Check that out. That's awesome. I love that. Well, Emily, it's always a pleasure chatting with you. And I can't believe it had been a year since you had been on the show.
That's crazy.
So,
no, this is so much fun. I enjoy it so much. So thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. Now, I do this weekly, typically 8 p.m. Eastern time at twitch.tv/TV's Travis for a live stream. And then it goes up on Sundays for patrons. You get it a few days early. Everyone else gets it on Wednesdays, anywhere you get your podcasts, including YouTube, for a video version or audio. Once a week, every week, probably until I die or I run out of movies to watch, whichever happens first. I do a bunch of other shows. You can find all that at tvstravis.com. I've got merch there. I have a Patreon, patreon.com/WYHS, which lets me do the show live at places like Dragon Con, which I'll be doing it again this year, and the upcoming Nerdtacular in Salt Lake City in June. So if you get to those events, come say hi, and I thank my patrons for helping me to do those things. Now, next episode, I have Dennis Robinson from Botched, a D&D podcast coming on. He writes about werewolves. He's never seen The Howling, so we're fixing that. He's going to watch The Howling. We're going to talk about that. That is the next episode coming up, so definitely check that out. And then I am off to Milwaukee and Adepticon to push plastic models around a table and play some Warhammer. So that'll be a lot of fun as well. So keep an eye out on the socials for anything coming out of Adepticon here pretty soon. I'm going to try and actually get some video this year. So we'll see how that goes. But Emily, thank you so much for being here. This is a pleasure as always. And until next time, everybody, remember to enjoy your movies. And Keanu would tell you, be excellent to each other. So in a way you haven't seen.
Then you're not invited. So fuck off, okay?
I loved him, silly as he was.